Council, we have our chief here, and we do need to get back to him. I'm sure he has better things to do. And so, Chief, if you'll come on up, you have a radio issue presentation for our police department, if you would, please.
I do. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The reason I asked to come here tonight was to address an issue with you involving our radios. This has kind of been an ongoing issue. It's also a time-sensitive issue, which is the reason I wanted to speak with you tonight without all the information. We're still in the process of gathering some more information about it, and I don't have all of the answers yet. But we thought that it was important to talk with you now before we move along, because if we get a break in this, we may be able to solve it sooner before coming back to council again in August. The issue is difficult to explain, but basically in fall of last year, the federal government mandated that we narrowband our radio frequencies, and that was across the country. It included everyone with an FCC license to transmit. When we narrowbanded the radios for the public safety, the police department system, which is VHF, was affected negatively by the narrowbanding to the point where our radios have become unreliable. We simply cannot count that they will work. We've spent a significant amount of time speaking with the different vendors, Motorola, Staley's, the engineers who actually built the system from back in the 90s when it was constructed, and tried to get a fix for it. The best thing they could tell us, they did some initial tuning, they did some changing of the radios, everything that they could try, just a reasonable fix, didn't work. The next suggestion was that we add repeaters, which are just radio receivers, in what they call the dead spots. Our issue, though, is we don't have dead spots. We have dead areas. It's not going to be as simple as putting a repeater up in this little corner of town where we're getting poor reception, because it's everywhere. Inside buildings is especially a problem for us now. If we're inside a steel structure, I'll use the example of Lowe's, where there was an incident inside Lowe's. They're trying to talk on their radios, and they can't hit the repeater that's on the crown tower. They can see it through the windows, but the radios couldn't get through the steel glass structure to transmit.
So your current radios, if they were inside a steel structure, would go out, would not be able to pick the...
They're hit and miss.
Yeah.
They're just not reliable. Pitcairn especially, and it's very consistent when we drop over the hill. If we go down Stroshine Road, down to Pitcairn Road, when you get down into the valley that runs all down through Pitcairn, it's 50-50 whether the radios will be effective.
I've noticed that, Steve, but a repeater would not help that situation?
We asked.
We were told that
That seems strange.
keep on adding repeaters and eventually it'll work.
As I'm familiar with us installing at Public Works an antenna, internal antenna into the building
Sure.
because of all the metal structure.
Sure. But we can't go to Lowe's and put a repeater.
Could we require the new
For all the
construction?
businesses to put them up?
Yeah, it
I
wouldn't.
mean,
It wouldn't. It wouldn't
I don't know
work
that it was a
because
real costly deal, the antenna.
The biggest costs with the repeaters are the connection back to the transmitter. If it's not done over the microwave system that's currently installed, it has to have 2 phone lines run to it. And once you have put the phone lines to it, then it's going to pick up the radio signal, it's going to transmit it through the phone lines back to the transmitter. So it actually travels through Verizon's system, and then there's rebroadcast. That we have to pay for installation of the phone lines and maintenance. So we're looking at between $400 and $500 per month per repeater just in phone bills. So it's expensive. If we could put a couple up and it might solve the problem, I would say try it. But what they're telling me and what everything I can understand is it probably won't help unless you put up several. So
Is
we
this
could
happening in other
Translate
departments?
several.
Is this happening in other departments?
Other
Yes.
departments are, well...
Other police departments?
Other police
Yes.
departments, aren't they on UHF, though?
now, well, in our area, in Allegheny County, we are unique to be on VHF. They call us the ones on the island. Us and Pitcairn are about the only police departments in this area that are still using VHF.
If you go to the county, doesn't the county put you on UHF?
They're all on UHF.
Well, that's what I was going to, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but I'm going, I purposely brought this December 23rd, 2010. This is when we invited the county here. We had many people submitting questions. One of the questions, the radio frequency system is up and not only meeting criteria, but is likely exceeding provisions for the radio frequency component. They said that they had spent $2.7 million on a UHF radio system reaching all over the county, and it's more developed than they anticipated, thanks primarily to a lot of people who are within the county who are connected to Monroeville, because, you know, in fact, a lot of that expertise came from Monroeville. But this was Mr. Full, before he went to work for Pima and did a presentation. He admits Monroeville has been on the cutting edge with technology ahead of the county. Indeed, an 800 system was examined and thought not to be as good. County staff from Monroeville has, for some time, built out a system that's not only better than the 800 megahertz, but is, in fact, the same platform used by Monroeville Fire and EMS, the 400 megahertz.
Megahertz, correct.
County already brings in units using our existing radio channels and can go on to do things like include the police's 150 megahertz platform, should that be our choice. So we can do this with fire. The radios that fire and EMS use don't have that problem?
And just like Mr. Full mentioned in his report, the system that the fire department and EMS uses is UHF, ultra high, in the 800, or I'm sorry, in the 400 megahertz. We are VHF, or very high, and we're down in the 150 megahertz, which just is, it's, again, I'm out of my league when I talk about radios, but it's not as powerful. It doesn't carry the signal through, especially through structures. So again, they weren't affected after narrowbanding. They didn't notice much of a difference at all, where we were greatly affected to the point where if you listen to the police, you'll hear it. You'll just hear the radios not connect. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And then we just call on your phone. Or the dispatchers will have officers call on their cell phones because they can't
They
understand
can't
them.
communicate with each other in buildings. If there's two, and we've dealt with this through the Public Safety Committee when it was originally brought up, probably when Harold was there, we've probably been dealing with this probably about 6 months to try to find some solutions.
Correct.
And Harold, we asked Harold at that time, and I may be wrong to confirm, there was no issues when they went to the narrow banding with the fire department. They didn't see much difference. But the police, when they did, and Harold was actually explaining it to me because I didn't understand. He said you would have frequency 450, then they made 450.1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where it all
That's the narrow
became. And
banding,
there's
that's
been a
correct.
significant issue, and I didn't understand all that, but the more lines they put on, the more garbled it got. Well, there's, even in like buildings, two officers can't communicate with each other in a building. Or if they're searching a home, they can't communicate with each other. Pitcairn can't even hear dispatch. And it became significant over the past year and because of the narrow banding.
Correct.
So what are you asking?
Well, I didn't get there yet.
Oh,
Yeah, we keep
Without
interrupting you.
boring, without getting into too much of the details, other than to explain to you that this problem exists and that there are not many solutions that are very economical currently. We basically have an issue where the mobile radios in the cars, the ones that are bolted into the cars they talk on, were purchased in 1996. They are out of date. They're no longer supported. We can't buy parts for them anymore. So we're actually surviving on cannibalizing parts from other radios to put them together to get the ones to work. That's not going to last much longer. We have to replace those radios. There is money in the 2013 capital improvement budget to replace those mobile radios. My fear is I spend that significant amount of money to replace 30 mobile radios at a cost of close to $50,000 for VHF radios. It's not going to do a single thing to help the problem we're having now. It won't do a thing. It's like having an AM radio when you're trying to listen to an FM radio station. You can't do it. It won't work. You need an FM radio to listen to an FM radio broadcast. I don't want to go out and spend $50,000 plus on AM radios that aren't working right now, and then to turn around and come back to you and say, well, it didn't work, we need to fix it. That's why it's so time sensitive. I think we need to do something now.
so what's the something?
There are a couple of options. The first option, and I met with the Fire Chiefs Committee at their meeting. The fire chiefs understand our dilemma. They are on UHF. They currently have 3 frequencies on their system, where they have 3 channels, 2 main channels and then 1 kind of a side channel. My request or my statement to them, I had again spoken with Motorola and with Staley's and gotten a base quote for bringing a frequency up to par for us to be able to use 1 frequency for the police.
Of theirs.
Of theirs, because they have 3, we have 1 in the 150s. It's going to be obsolete. The quote for that was around $70,000 to upgrade, to bring a frequency up to the point where it would be reliable enough for us to work. I'm being told now through the fire chiefs that may actually be a little bit higher than that the 70 may not be enough. We may have to add some additional receivers to almost mirror what the fire department's using to get that additional coverage. If we do that, and then we upgrade the radios, the mobile radios and the portables that we have, we would be okay. Our next issue would then be to take our VHF system that we currently have that exists, and it's also modern enough, even though it's older, it's modern enough to be narrowbanded. And we could find a broker to sell that equipment for us, because there are communities all over the country that have the same problem. They're under the mandate, but their equipment is too old to narrowband, so it's useless. So they're looking for used equipment that's capable of being narrowband into smaller towns that they can buy and use.
And
We could hire a broker to sell off what we have and try to recoup as much of the cost as possible that we spend to make this switch.
Now, Steve, you said that to upgrade the 1 channel from the fire department, or ours rather, it's about 70,000 plus, right? But then when you talk about all the equipment purchases and all that, what kind of money were you actually talking? That's fairly big money, because you're gonna have to do new towers, new everything, am I not correct?
No, the quote from Staley's and Motorola for the $70,000 would be to use the existing equipment that we already own. It's up, it's all over Monroeville, it's what the fire departments use every day.
Existing infrastructure.
Correct. Instead of trying to build out new infrastructure, and you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor, if we tried to build out the infrastructure to go to UHF, we're looking in the millions.
That's what I was just gonna say.
You're no doubt about it, because you'd have to rent tower space. You would have to spend millions of dollars to try to upgrade if we had nothing. But we already own, through the fire departments, a UHF system with infrastructure.
Who owns that? The fire department? or the
There's a lot of
municipality?
debate. There's debate about who, the licenses are obviously in the name of the municipality of Monroeville. The fire departments,
Wasn't that done in the 90s by convenience, or something to that effect?
Ron,
It's
I don't know
technically
if Ron,
theirs.
Yeah,
we asked Ron at our
we had the
public safety
meeting.
meeting, and he
Yeah.
explained how all that came about.
there was changes made when we became ERC where they had to
Right,
put
it
licenses.
had to do with the ERC.
They transferred them from their name into the municipality's name. So, I mean, technically on paper, and this would be lawyer stuff, who owns what. We're not trying to get into a battle about taking anything. They seem to want to share. They want to help us.
Well, my understanding is, Chief, they have a meeting tomorrow with Motorola, and they're going to be discussing that, and I guess there'll be some options laid out.
The meeting, the intention of the meeting tomorrow is with just simply the fire chiefs and the companies, the radio
Correct. Isn't that
companies.
Motorola and Staley?
Correct. And they want to make sure that none of the changes we're proposing to make with that $70-some thousand to their system will have any effect on their operations. If that's the case, if they tell them, no, you can make these changes, you can beef up these transmitters and add that extra frequency, and it won't affect your operations at all. My impression from the chiefs, if that's the case, then they will cooperate, possibly to the point of lending us their 3rd frequency.
Now, why don't we just go for our own?
So that's the next option.
We are going
discussed as
to,
well.
again, getting
We
into
could
the
be
whole.
denied. We could apply.
There's a company that
Yeah,
the
but
fire.
you have companies that do that for
Well,
you,
that's
though.
what
It's here.
that's
Yeah,
what
we have
we're
the company
facilitating
in
as well.
Nevada, Cara
Oh, you're
Enterprises, that the fire department used to obtain their 3rd frequency. They got contact with them. They sent an email to Lynette and I. It would cost $500 for one or $800 for two for this company to make application to the FCC for those two frequencies. Doesn't mean we're going to get them.
I understand that.
Doesn't mean we'll get them. It could be a year. It could be 2 weeks. We just don't know. But if we wanted to go that route, if we wanted to say to this company, yes, we'll pay you this money, you get the background, they do the studies, they make application, they're professional, they do it.
I understand the system.
So that would be well worth that money.
Well, this is actually was recommended by Ron, that the person who's at, Mr. Grimes, who deals with us all the time, that he would be willing to do that and assist with the company that you already use to do this.
Ron, please.
This is information we
identify
discussed in our
yourself,
public
sign in.
safety meeting, so.
I mean, we know who you are, but you have to do it for the record.
Joe Smith, no. Ron Harvey, I'm chief of Number 5 Fire Company, and kind of proud to say that I was in the onset of the system that we use now for the fire companies. And just a real quick brief, back then, the fire companies were on even a lower band than what the police are now. All of Allegheny County was on the same channel. And the fire departments and EMS.
At 33 and 40 megahertz.
That's
Very
right. So we would be out there running a fire call somewhere, and Tarentum would start their nightly test. And we couldn't even talk, and then you'd go on an accident and somebody else would start their test, or, I mean, it was just a battle of people were up in their wattage so they could step on the other guy. It was ludicrous. And Monroeville, getting as busy as we were, decided that it was time to get out of that mess. And the fire chiefs committee at the time put me on the committee for equipment. Bob Ratcher and Harold Gutowski met with council numerous times. I mean, designing this and coming up with the finances for it. And we decided then that going to the 400 megahertz, which Chief Pascarella told you about, was the advanced thing to do. That would be the thing to do to last us for a very long time.
What year was this? What year did that all happen?
1988.
I remember I asked you, I forgot. I'm gonna ask you last.
And so we had different chiefs taking different responsibilities. Those two met with council, came up with the bond issues and things like that. Another person did the licensing, and we got licensed for 2 repeated channels on the 400 megahertz wavelength, and ordered all our equipment. It all came into my fire station. We distributed it from there, and
You said
of course we did.
Monroeville's council paid for all that except for your radios, is that correct?
That budget issue, bond issue, paid for everything.
That was, from Monroeville council approved that.
Yeah.
But you said the radios.
Getting to that. That the first initial purchase, portables, mobiles, repeaters, microwave, and at the same time that was happening, the Crown Tower was being built on Number 5's property. So we worked into the lease that the municipality of Monroeville, fire, police, EMS, and road department would have free tower space for the length of the. So we don't pay for tower space over there. Never have, never will, as long as we keep the lease going. And that's where the first microwave system went. Came from this building to there. The backup channel went from here to the top of Forbes Hospital. And basically, we located the repeaters in the best locations we could. You're never going to get, ever going to get 100% coverage. But if you get 90, 95, you're doing well. And you're doing very well. And we had, maybe it wasn't quite 90, it was probably around 85% coverage. 286 in that was a dead spot, and we had trouble with portables out there. Mobiles were okay because mobiles have a higher wattage. But either way, we built this up, and it was licensed in the Monroeville Volunteer Fire Department's name.
Who paid for the licenses?
There was no fee. I mean, it was a real minor fee. I don't know if the Chiefs Committee paid for it or our relief or whatever. And we owned it. It was licensed in Monroeville Volunteer Fire Company. That's all it said, and then it was addressed at number 4 Fire Company on Northern Pike. That's where the licenses went. As time went on, the ERC was being proposed, the Eastern Regional Center, and it was starting to come together, and Monroeville wanted to be the hub of that. And one of the things that we found out from the county is that if the fire departments owned the radio frequency, that would put a knot in the thing, because way down the line in the laws, they didn't want that to happen. And reasonably so, because you could have opened the ERC and the fire chiefs could have come in and said, we want our radio license back, and, oh, by the way, get off it. And you'd have shut down a whole region of the county. So the license, we transferred it to the municipality's name so that ERC could open. And we still to this day get the licenses mailed to us, but we have it in the municipality's name because they were the Eastern Regional Center. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, for those that don't know what that means, as time went on, by the way, we replaced all those, the fire chiefs paid, we've gone through 2 generations of mobile radios, probably 3 generations of portable radios, and these pagers we have paid for ourselves at least twice. So that initial equipment purchase is all gone, except for the infrastructure, the repeaters, the base station downstairs, and the microwave system has been replaced too. So, because this has been going on since 1988, and what happened is that we were getting so busy with EMS and fire, and we get a situation, a house fire, and it just causes a lot of radio traffic, and we have to have a channel open to dispatch multiple calls. They're coming in. We needed another operations channel, so we hired a firm in Nevada to apply for a new radio channel for us, an operations channel.
And this is the company that we're talking about applying.
That's correct. They got that license for us. It's a lower wattage channel. It's meant for just operations around a certain incident. It's not meant to transmit.
In other words,
from
it's
here to
lower wattage. Is what
40
you're
watts.
basically- Yeah.
Exactly.
And the question at our public safety meeting was, could it be higher? And you didn't know, and that's what, you're gonna have some questions answered.
Yeah, we found out the answer to that, by the way, just
You didn't tell me
recently.
that.
Yeah, I just found out that they can't increase the wattage of that operations channel because there's a police department, there's another fire department in Pennsylvania on that same channel that's their primary channel. So that's the reason why they licensed us for 40 watts. It wouldn't go that far and interfere with
In other
that.
words, that maybe skip would happen. And you
Yeah, and
would
I forget the
actually
name of the
step
fire
in.
department. You would recognize it if I said it. I just don't remember. But they're
In
north of us.
southwestern PA, or
Pardon me?
it's in southwestern PA, or it's in close enough? where the-
Northwest. They're in northwestern Pennsylvania. But the FCC does propagation studies when they get these applications, and they do topographical maps and see how far you're going to transmit. And
Right.
That's where they came up with the 40 watts, that we would stay far enough away from them, under 40 watts. And it's a repeated channel, but it's repeated at 40 watts. And for the police department to operate on a 40-watt repeated channel, you'd have to probably put up about 30 repeaters, just to bounce around town, because it's just not enough. It's just not enough to get around. So I don't know what the answer is to their licensing issue yet on that 400 megahertz.
What about your third channel?
You know, what's the
The third channel is the 40-watt channel. The second channel is normal power.
So you're using 2 full channels?
Yes.
Wait a minute, Steve, this is a question for you, and I don't have all my stuff with me, but don't we have equipment in Pitcairn that we can bring up to maybe put in, and there's somewhere else? Is it Trafford or somewhere that we have?
They have a repeater over in East
East
McKeesport.
McKeesport, that's it, and Pitcairn, right, that's ours.
Pitcairn's the one that Comcast never, not Comcast, I keep saying
Verizon.
Comcast. Verizon
Never
has
hooked
never got permission to
Wouldn't that be a
service
cheap,
down there.
just
so
try
it's
it
dead.
before
It's-
we jump in
Doesn't
with
do anything.
putting a whole lot of money that, it's gonna be a tight budget this coming up. I understand our capital improvement, but I'm just
Well-
asking. I'm no expert in that area.
We'd have to move it.
Can I expand on what
Yeah.
Chief is, if this thing works, that he's proposing, basically, what it's gonna do, and I'll find out tomorrow at tomorrow's Chiefs meeting, what it's going to do is buy them what the money he's asking for you for is gonna buy them equipment that will sit side by side on our equipment and use our equipment to transmit their channel, but not interfere with us. If that's possible, I mean, we don't have a problem, okay?
I understand that.
Okay? The equipment he's asking you for, if this whole thing works, if it comes together, is basically gonna piggyback off our current system, if you will. So when they key up their radio, it's gonna go in and out our transmitters, but not interfere with our frequency.
Well, the whole-
And don't ask me how that works, because I have no idea.
But you will have somebody who knows, and
Yeah,
you'll talk to
but the
them
issue is-
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we are
Yeah.
going to talk to the guy from Staley Communications, who is, I would trust him with any radio
Terry?
we own, is gonna be the guy there answering our questions and
Is that
talking to
Terry,
us.
Ron? Is that Terry?
Terry. And, once we fire out all our questions, and if hopefully he answers the way we hope to hear, there's just no problem.
Well, the dilemma
us.
begins with replacing equipment that needs to be replaced in the cars. It's like you're going to put in a 8-track tape in there when there's, you're going to replace it with another 8-track tape. It's not.
But I don't know if he's going to, I hope, but I don't know. That's why we requested at the Public Safety Committee meeting, give us time to meet with him and talk and answer all our questions. And the chief had to get this stuff on the.
Oh, no, and I don't think.
You
it makes this-
recommended him coming as. before
Yeah, I
you
said,
and
put
for this
it,
month
put it
anyhow.
in the agenda, because if everything goes good tomorrow, then it'll be ready for your next meeting.
We didn't want to come back, we
But if
didn't want
he-
to wait
if
a
he didn't
month,
put it
come
on
back
tonight,
in
then it'd
August
be a
and
month.
say, we
I don't
got
think
approval
anybody
a
on this
year
council
ago,
is
but
gonna
now we
argue
can't,
against
we
Steve.
can't, right, we
Believe me.
wanted to try to get
I
it
would
out
imagine
now.
there are outside examples of where you can't talk to each other, such as, give me an example.
We,
Understand that this may or may not improve him. I mean, there's no evidence, I mean, we're hoping, but,
there was-
our radio coverage is not 1,000%
Well,
either.
there was a significant difference with over the last year and a half. Prior to that, it wasn't as significant.
For some reason, it didn't seem like the narrowbanding change affected us, our frequency as much as it affected their frequency. I don't know why, but this narrowbanding thing, the thing I don't understand is that was supposed to like quadruple the available frequencies that the FCC could license out there, which means he should have had no trouble as a primary police department to get 2 channels, and it's turning out to be a pain in the butt. I can tell you that the Las Vegas guys are going crazy with the FCC because the first response was they'll give them a channel, but at 20 watts. That would have required about 600 repeaters to go around,
The average is what, about 75 to 100, am I correct?
Yeah, I
We
think that's
wanna-
what we're at,
I'm sorry,
we
Steve,
would want to be between 75 and 100.
100, yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know why that is, that channel is being so difficult to get. But until then,
But wouldn't it
the
still,
remedy-
even if this works out, wouldn't it still behoove us, Stephen, this is a question for you, to still get our own anyway, still apply for it?
Absolutely, we intend to.
Okay, I didn't hear you
Yeah,
say
No,
but
that.
we, if they loan us,
They
now,
agreed and
again,
then-
tonight is the first time I heard that the third channel isn't an option, is what you're saying, and
it's
that's
an option if you can stay at 40
We
watts.
can, well, 40 watts is an
At our
option.
last meeting, you indicated, you didn't know that yet. You haven't answered
Yeah,
from
but
our
I found
last
that
meeting
out.
until
and
now, right?
That company Lynette that we contacted, responded to Chris, just like, yeah. And they can't bump up the 40 watts because there's a primary police channel north of us that it'll interfere with. However, it doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means you have to put up, and I'm exaggerating, it just means you have to put up 100 repeaters because they can only transmit at 40 watts. They have to be repeaters all over the place.
Well, just to be clear, we had numerous meetings. We went through many different options. And, we had Harold there at some of them, and we're looking at, he suggested, that the chief call Terry, it's how I know his name, to give suggestions. We've gone through putting up additional repeaters. We've gone through going on one of the lines of the fire departments. This has all been suggested actually by him, and this is kind of where we're at.
And
the
again,
bottom
and this
line
kind of
now.
addresses what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, is how much money do we want to spend on this system right now? It may be worth having that, we have that unused
So
repeater
here's my problem, because
relocated.
we're getting right back into it again. And I don't mean to interrupt the chief, but here goes. In 1987, 86, when we started this design, the fire departments, because of the council committee they were meeting with, invited the police department and the road department to come in with us. We were going to get licensed for 6 channels, all on 400 and above, okay? 2 for fire, 2 for police, 1 for the road department, and 1 administrative channel, okay? And everybody turned us down. Everybody said, get away, we don't want no parts of you, go do what you want, play with your fire trucks, whatever, whatever they did, honestly. It was insulting, the answers they gave us.
Question. real
So, I don't, we don't want that to happen again.
What was the
That's-
answer from whom?
From council?
The road department,
Well,
the
that's
police
what-
department
that's
at
what
the time,
Well, some of the questions were, to me, when I was asking, I'm like, why didn't you do this all at one time? And you're like, that would have been but that's not, there's a different council today.
we tried.
I understand, but we're trying to,
And the department heads at
So
the
Steve,
time,
what you're saying is if you were offered the UHF, the equipment in the vehicles now would all have to be changed out.
It has to go anyway. It needs to be replaced.
But I mean, it wouldn't be capable of
No,
receiving the
no, it's,
UHF.
again, that gets into you need an
No,
AM
one's
radio. and an
VHF,
FM.
Steve, one's UHF.
I understand that, but I didn't know if they could change.
And
you know,
Mr. Duncan, we are
components in the
budgeted to
radio
do that now. I just hesitate to do it because I don't want to spend that amount of money on obsolete radios, and that's exactly what we're going to
Right,
do.
why would you? Yeah.
And we still have the issue, and again, this is a police department issue with the surrounding communities where they have all gone to UHF. Penn Hills, Plum, everyone around us that went to the county are on UHF radios. They don't carry VHF radios. We can't talk to our neighbors.
we had an
Yeah, but
incident.
can't the county, I thought the county can patch you in.
You're absolutely right. They can. They are capable of patching the frequencies
And
together.
that's a 1-second deal. Am I not
Well,
correct?
and we had the shooting at the Boys Park last month, where Plum and the county police were screaming for our assistance. We sent 4 cars over there. Dispatchers are trying to call to get those radios patched together, but the system was overwhelmed with calls of
mean
the
the
shooting.
county's was?
And they didn't answer the phone. So we couldn't get through. What we actually were able to do was steal, we have a fire department portable. I have one, but we actually have 2 of them. We were able to get on that, we have 3. I don't know where the third one is, but I know where 2 of them are.
We
were
bought
able-
you 3.
We were able to switch over to the county's police operations channel on a fire department radio and hear them and talk to them. But we had to have that radio.
We gave 1 to the chief, we gave 1 to the assistant chief, and 1 to the radio room downstairs in case they had to.
Okay, well, let's cut to the chase then, Chief. Then, obviously, the meeting tomorrow with Motorola and Staley is very important.
Huge.
And I guess we have to wait and see what they're going to
You
say.
do.
But obviously,
You
keep it
just
on
do.
the agenda.
Because
We
you
can
you
move
could
on it
you
right
could end
away,
up
then we move.
goofing up 2 radio systems, if you do the
Well-
wrong thing.
Well, no, obviously,
know.
I agree with that.
What I would ask is that if the meeting goes well tomorrow and this can be done without damaging or without affecting their system, then I would ask that we be permitted to move, to go ahead and use this company to apply for the extra, the new frequency, and to do what we can to start the process of switching over. This is going to take a while. And,
Counsel, I mean, I'm sure you don't have.
Well,
any
the
issue with
alternative,
that.
you can't talk to each other, you go to Boys
mean,
Park
just
and
to
you're
recommend-
responding to
I
a
mean,
call,
where's the
you're
money
you're going to
coming
need something.
Capital improvement.
It's already in.
The money's in
This
there.
is, it's a matter of a life and death situation, I wouldn't
The
have.
other part of it.
I think
the other
it
part
is,
he's
but
talking
I'm
about, which we have in.
Just to understand, your first option that you presented, you said you had 2 options. The first option, as I understand it, is doing a $70,000 upgrade, selling the VHS for whatever amount you get. The upgrade's going to cost $70,000. Does that include all the radios plus all of the upgrades that need to
No.
happen?
that 70,000 is the infrastructure upgrades that need to happen to allow us to transmit and use the fire department's 3rd frequency.
And how much would the radio equipment cost us?
The mobile units in the cars, we need to buy 30. It's going to cost us about $50,000.
That's
So
already.
so right now, we're at
But
120. What about the what about the handheld
That
units?
out there, but I don't think everybody understands that.
The portable radios that we carry were replaced when we narrowbanded. So those radios are less than a year old.
What does that mean to me?
What that means to you is that they have value. We would have to resell them again through a broker.
Okay, but you would need to buy new handhelds.
Correct.
How much would the handhelds cost?
I don't have the price for them, but they are, again, expensive. You're probably looking at close to another $50,000.
Okay, so we're looking at potentially a $200,000.
I don't know how
170.
many portables he would need, but we just purchased them at my station. And they were about $2,800 a piece.
That's about what the mobiles are.
Okay,
But now you're saying that that option now that you're learning that third channel's not available,
Right.
so does that strike that
Well,
whole option?
if we can't bring that channel up to what would be a usable power level to make this effective, then no, that's not an option.
So what would be the option then?
I'm running out of options.
So-
And
so
again,
Mr.
Would
I
it be
don't-
additional repeaters would be the option?
if you want to invest money into the VHF system,
No, I'm just asking, would that be an option if you can't?
it is, sure it is. I
I
mean,
think
we
it's a
can.
poor option.
It's the option to get.
It's a poor option, but if you can't get a UHF channel.
Wait, so
Well,
if
you know what,
can't-
folks, we're all jumping to conclusions. You're saying maybe they can piggyback on
Yeah, see
you
what
on
they
one of
can
your
do.
channels if it doesn't do your department in.
The $70-some thousand worth of equipment that he's asking you for tonight to put on the budget is what we're praying and crossing our fingers works, okay? If at the regular council meeting he's not here, it doesn't work. No, I mean, it's just really, it's
What happens is,
We're
Steve?
gonna buy Nextels. I don't know what the-
I don't, if it doesn't work, we have to go on to phase two. I don't,
Well, right now, does the county have the ability to transmit all over Monroeville?
Yes.
Okay, so for 4 years, I've been saying the same thing, and I'm going to bring it up again. Right now, we're talking about spending close to $200,000 on something that is in addition to $800,000 that we've had in the budget. I think it's fully loaded at $800,000 that we've been spending for the last 4 years. We have the option to go to the county. The state is revising and making it harder for smaller entities to have access to 911, and probably going to make ring down very difficult under the new legislation. We have the option to go to the county. That saves us $800,000 at least of the $6 million deficit we have next year, and it saves us that money in perpetuity. We're all paying the taxes for the dispatch, or for the 911 center that the county operates. We all pay those taxes today. If the county raises taxes, we will pay more taxes, whether we have our own or not. It is fundamentally the way to address our budget problem is to cut costs. I've given everybody on council a recent article about a neighboring community that just had their credit rating increased. They also just lowered the taxes, or the tax rate, on their citizens. They don't have business privilege taxes. They don't have a mercantile tax. And they have increased their credit rating, and the way they did it is through cutting costs. We need to cut costs. The time to play around with this has ended. Unless you are all willing to raise the taxes by 6 mil. Are the incoming council, are you ready for a 6 mil increase under your watch?
you spent it.
No.
I didn't come up
that
here,
money
I
was
didn't come
spent-
up here to get a political argument with you. I
It's
came
not
up
a
to try to
political argument.
solve a public safety issue.
This is a public safety issue. I've been saying it for
But
4
you
years,
went,
it's a
you
public
went off,
safety issue.
you went off talking about stuff that you have brought up.
I'd like
time
to
and time
suggest
again.
that you go to your meeting tomorrow, find out what's up, and bring it back to us, Steve.
That's what I'll do.
I have to
Thank you.
say too, regardless, and I'm not going to try to get in the middle, but either way, that's the best to do for this community and for safety. And I'm going to step out here. I hear this radio daily. These officers cannot communicate with each other inside buildings when they're attempting on tone calls, which is highly dangerous calls. It's dangerous. They cannot talk to each other. Pitcairn can't communicate with our dispatch center. There was a
agree.
rollover accident. So I don't want to debate the 911 issue. I want to get this fixed for the safety of this community.
Chief Pascarella, question about, as Mr. Erb suggests, going to the county. what would we have to do? Would we still have to purchase radios? What would be the cost as far as us to even get to that point?
If we went to if you said we're going to go to the county today, or tomorrow morning, I want you to move to the county, we would still need to buy the mobile radios for the cars, and we would have to upgrade to UHF port. The
And the
county
handhelds.
doesn't support VHF.
So the handheld, we have to buy the
Correct.
handhelds, the car
So
ones.
the same thing that I'm saying we have to do with the mobile radios, and with our portable radios, we would have to do tomorrow if you said that we have to go to the county.
No matter what-
Either way, we have to do it.
No matter what anybody wants to say up
That's what I
here,
wanted to-
I've talked to numerous police officers, numerous police chiefs, and tons of fire chiefs, and said, we have better radio communications than the county. Period.
Well, then may your meeting be successful.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I agree with that.
We have an issue.
Thank you.
When the county was here, and what
Thank you.
year they were
Thank you,
here,
Chief.
they said, when they set up some of theirs, they were actually following Monroeville's fire department. So they do have, they called it the creme de la creme, so it's true.
All right, Council.